The human was sent to eliminate the monster, but what he did instead will shock you. The rusty transport ship's landing struts groaned as they touched down on the dusty surface of Proxima 7, a forgotten backwater world on the edges of human space. Terran Drake, veteran monster hunter and former Special Forces operative, adjusted his bulky black combat suit as he stepped out into the harsh alien sunlight. His dark stubble caught the light as he surveyed the ramshackle settlement before him, a collection of prefab structures and makeshift dwellings that spoke of desperate colonization rather than planned expansion. The locals had offered him a considerable sum to deal with their monster problem. According to the terrified settlers, some kind of tentacled horror had been terrorizing them for months, destroying equipment and frightening workers away from the valuable mineral deposits that were the colony's only real asset. "You must help us, Hunter," pleaded Alderman Thex, a wizened old alien with pale blue skin and multiple eyes. "The creature has made our mining operations impossible. Without those resources, our colony will fail." Terran nodded grimly, checking the power cells on his plasma rifle. "I'll handle it. Just point me in the right direction." The colonists had described their tormentor as a writhing mass of tentacles that emerged from the shadows to wreak havoc. But something about their story didn't quite add up. The damage pattern seemed too selective, too precise for a mindless beast. Following the coordinates provided, Terran made his way through a narrow canyon, his enhanced combat suit's sensors sweeping for any sign of movement. The rocky walls rose high above him, casting deep shadows in the alien world's waning daylight. That's when he saw her. She emerged from a hidden cave entrance, moving with an otherworldly grace that immediately caught his attention. Her skin was a mesmerizing shade of violet, complemented by penetrating silver eyes that seemed to pierce right through him. Long, elegant tentacles flowed from her back and head like living silk, moving with hypnotic precision. Her figure was decidedly feminine, clad in a form-fitting black bodysuit that left little to the imagination. Terran's trigger finger tensed, but he didn't raise his weapon. Something about this situation wasn't adding up. The creature before him was no mindless beast. She was clearly intelligent, and her posture wasn't aggressive despite his armed presence. "Well," she said in perfect standard English, her voice carrying a melodic quality that sent shivers down his spine. "Another hunter come to kill the monster?" "That depends," Terran replied, keeping his tone neutral. "Are you the one terrorizing the miners?" She laughed, a sound like crystal wind chimes. "Is that what they told you? That I'm terrorizing them?" Her tentacles swayed gracefully as she approached, showing no fear of his weapons. "They didn't mention how they tried to forcibly evict me from my home? Or how they've been dumping toxic mining waste into the underground water system?" Terran frowned. He'd seen this kind of situation before. Greedy corporations or desperate colonists trying to eliminate problems that stood in the way of their profits. "Tell me your side." "My name is Lilith," she said, moving closer still. "I'm a Cephalian researcher. I've been studying the unique mineral formations in these caves for years before these colonists arrived. When I tried to warn them about the environmental damage their mining operations were causing, they decided it would be easier to label me a monster and hire someone to eliminate me." Her silver eyes met his, and the Terran felt something stir within him, a connection he couldn't explain. "I've only defended myself," she continued, "used my abilities to scare them away from the most dangerous mining sites. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I won't let them destroy this ecosystem either." Terran lowered his weapon completely. "Show me the evidence." Over the next hour, Lilith led him through the cave system, showing him detailed scientific readings and clear signs of environmental damage. Her intelligence and passion for her work were obvious, as was the truth of her claims. "You're not what I expected," she said finally, studying him with those mesmerizing silver eyes. "Most hunters shoot first and ask questions, never." "And you're not what they described," Terran replied with a slight smile. "Though I have to admit, you're far more intriguing than any monster I've encountered." A subtle purple flush colored her cheeks. "You know, you're the first human male I've met who didn't immediately try to kill me or run away screaming. It's refreshing." As the alien sun began to set, casting deep purple shadows through the crystalline cave formations, Terran and Lilith pored over environmental data on her holographic display. The proximity between them had grown closer over the past few hours, an electric tension building with each shared glance and accidental brush of skin against skin. "These toxicity readings are far worse than I initially suspected," Lilith murmured, her tentacles swaying with agitation. The mining corporation is using banned chemicals that could poison the entire underground water system. Terran found himself distracted by the way her silver eyes caught the light, the subtle shifts of her violet skin as she moved. He forced himself to focus on the data. We'll need concrete evidence to bring them down. Documentation, shipping manifests, anything that proves they knowingly used illegal substances. That would mean infiltrating their main facility, Lilith said, turning to face him. The movement brought them even closer together in the confined space of her research station. It's heavily guarded. Good thing you've got a professional infiltration specialist on your side now. Terran gave her a roguish grin that made her breath catch audibly. Are you always this confident? She asked, one tentacle playfully brushing against his shoulder. Only when I'm right. He caught her tentacle gently between his fingers, marveling at its silken texture. And I'm usually right. Lilith's skin flushed a deeper shade of violet. You're nothing like what I expected humans to be. The stories I've heard. And what stories are those? That you're primitive, violent, incapable of seeing beyond your own limited perspective. Her free tentacles curled around them both, creating an intimate cocoon. But you're different. You listened. You understood. Maybe you just needed to meet the right human. Terran replied, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. Their faces drew closer, the attraction between them magnetic and undeniable. Just before their lips met, an alarm blared from Lilith's monitoring equipment. Security patrol, she breathed, reluctantly pulling back. They've been increasing their sweeps lately. Terran checked his tactical display. 3 guards, heavy weapons. We should move deeper into the cave system. They retreated through winding tunnels, Lilith leading the way with natural grace while Terran watched their backs. The close quarters forced them to press together at times, each contact sending sparks of electricity through them both. Finally, they reached a larger chamber that Lilith had converted into a living space. Bioluminescent crystals cast a soft, intimate glow over comfortable furnishings that somehow managed to look both alien and inviting. We should be safe here, Lilith said, her tentacles relaxing from their defensive posture. The mineral deposits in these walls block their scanners. Terran found himself studying her in the ethereal light. You've made quite a home for yourself. It gets lonely sometimes, she admitted, moving closer to him. Especially since the colonists arrived. Before that, I had other researchers visit occasionally. Now ... she trailed off, her silver eyes meeting his with unmistakable intent. Now you've got me, Terran said softly, reaching out to trace the elegant ridges along her skull. Lilith leaned into his touch, her tentacles wrapping gently around his waist. I've never felt this way about anyone before, especially not a human. It should feel wrong, but it doesn't, Terran finished for her, pulling her closer. It feels right. Their lips met in a kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something more passionate. Lilith's tentacles caressed him with an intimacy that sent fire through his veins, while his strong hands explored the curves of her body through her form-fitting suit. Stay with me tonight, she whispered against his lips. Please. Terran answered by kissing her again, deeper this time. They lost themselves in each other, 2 beings from different worlds finding something unexpected and beautiful in their differences. Later, as they lay entwined on Lilith's bed, her tentacles wrapped protectively around them both, she traced patterns on his chest. I never imagined I could feel this way about someone so different from me. Different isn't always bad, Terran murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Sometimes it's exactly what we need. The corporation won't stop, she said after a moment. They'll keep sending hunters. Let them try. His voice carried steel beneath its tenderness. I'm not going anywhere. We'll need to be careful when we investigate the facility, Lilith said, propping herself up to look at him. They're dangerous people. I know, but we'll be more dangerous together. He smiled at her expression. What? You humans really are remarkable, she said wonderingly. So fierce, yet capable of such gentleness. So determined, yet so adaptable. We're full of surprises. He pulled her down for another kiss, losing himself in the unique sensation of her tentacles sliding against his skin. The mining facility's security systems were top-notch, but they hadn't been designed to stop someone with Terran's Special Forces training or Lilith's unique abilities. Under the cover of Proxima 7's darkest night cycle, They slipped through the compound's outer perimeter like shadows. "Their main server room should be 2 levels down," Terran whispered, checking his tactical display. His combat suit's stealth systems harmonized perfectly with Lilith's natural ability to blend into darkness. "I can sense 3 guards ahead," Lilith murmured, her tentacles detecting minute vibrations in the air. "And something else, strange energy signatures I've never encountered before." Terran felt her press against his back, the contact sending a pleasant shiver through him despite the tension of their mission. "Strange how?" "Like quantum encryption, but more advanced. Whatever they're hiding, it's bigger than illegal mining operations." They moved in perfect sync, Lilith's tentacles providing extra stability as they navigated narrow maintenance shafts. The intimacy of their movements reminded Terran of their passionate encounters, making it harder to focus on the mission. "You're thinking inappropriate thoughts," Lilith teased softly, her tentacles giving him a playful squeeze. "Can you blame me? You're incredibly distracting." He turned his head to catch her silver eyes gleaming with mischief in the darkness. "Focus, human. You can distract me properly later." The promise in her voice made his heart race, but he forced himself to concentrate as they reached the server level. The security here was even heavier than expected. Automated turrets, motion sensors, and what looked like military-grade encryption locks. "This is definitely not standard mining security," Terran observed, analyzing the defenses. "This is more like what you'd see at a Black Ops site." Lilith's tentacles worked multiple control panels simultaneously while Terran kept watch. "The encryption is fascinating. It's like nothing I've ever encountered in corporate systems. This has government-level complexity." "Can you crack it?" "Please," she scoffed playfully, her tentacles dancing across the interfaces. I didn't spend years studying xenotechnology just to be stopped by some fancy locks. Though I must admit, having such a handsome guardian makes the work more enjoyable." Terran grinned despite the situation. "Flirt later, hack now. I can do both. We Cephalians are excellent multitaskers." As if to prove her point, one of her tentacles traced a teasing line down his spine while the others continued working. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a massive server room. As they moved inside, the scale of the conspiracy began to unfold before them. Files, communications, transfer records, all pointing to something far darker than environmental violations. "Terran," Lilith called softly, her voice tight with concern. "Look at this." The documents on her screen told a chilling story. The mining operation was just a cover for something much bigger. A secret coalition of corporations and government officials from multiple systems, all working together to exploit resources on dozens of worlds. "They're not just poisoning this planet," Lilith said, her tentacles writhing with agitation. "They're doing it everywhere. Using shell companies, fake environmental reports, bribing officials, and eliminating anyone who gets in their way," Terran added grimly, finding records of other monster problems that had been solved on different worlds. Lilith's hand found his in the darkness. "We could leave. Find somewhere safe." "You know we can't." He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. "Not now that we know the truth." "I knew you'd say that." She sighed, her tentacles wrapping around him affectionately. "It's one of the things I love about you humans. Your relentless drive to fight injustice. Just humans in general, or one specific human?" he teased, trying to lighten the moment. "Well, I must admit, my research sample is rather limited." Her silver eyes sparkled with both humor and desire. "Though I find my current subject particularly fascinating, perhaps we should conduct more thorough studies." Their lips met in a heated kiss, danger of their situation only intensifying their connection. But before things could progress further, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "We've got company," Terran said, reluctantly pulling away. "Lots of it." "Then we should give them something to chase." Lilith's tentacles flew across the controls, downloading evidence while simultaneously triggering a false alarms throughout the facility. They moved through the complex like a well-oiled machine, Terran's combat expertise complementing Lilith's abilities perfectly. When guards appeared, her tentacles would snatch their weapons, while his precise shots disabled their armor. At one point, she used her tentacles to swing them both across a massive gap between buildings, the adrenaline of the moment making them both laugh, despite the danger. Finally reaching the perimeter, they encountered heavy resistance. As Terran engaged in close combat with security forces, Lilith's tentacles danced through the air like deadly ribbons, disarming and disabling opponents with graceful efficiency. "You know," Terran called out as he dropped another guard with a perfect takedown, "watching you fight is incredibly attractive." "Likewise," she replied, using one tentacle to yank a guard's feet out from under him, while another accessed a security panel. "Though I prefer more intimate forms of physical activity with you." They made it back to Lilith's cave system just as dawn was breaking, high on adrenaline and the thrill of success. The evidence they'd gathered would expose the entire corrupt operation, once they figured out how to release it safely. But for now, as Lilith pulled Terran deeper into her private chambers, other matters seemed more pressing. Her tentacles made quick work of his combat suit, while his hands found the familiar fasteners of her bodysuit. "We should probably plan our next move," he murmured against her violet skin, not sounding particularly convinced. "We will," she assured him, her tentacles wrapping around him possessively. Later, the morning after their daring raid, Terran watched in fascination as Lilith analyzed her own biological readings. Her tentacles operated multiple holographic displays, while she cross-referenced data from the mining facility with her personal research. "This is extraordinary," she exclaimed, her silver eyes bright with excitement. "My species' natural resistance to toxins is far more advanced than I realize. The chemicals they're using, the ones lethal to most life forms, barely register in my system." Terran moved behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders. "That explains why you've been able to stay in these caves despite the contamination. More than that," she turned to face him, tentacles still manipulating data in the background. "I can safely access areas that would kill most beings. Areas where they're likely hiding more evidence." "Absolutely not," Terran said firmly, pulling her closer. "It's too dangerous. They'll be on high alert after our break-in." Lilith's tentacles wrapped around his waist, drawing their bodies together. "Are you worried about me, my fierce human protector?" "Always," he admitted, brushing his lips against her temple. "Though I've noticed you're remarkably capable of taking care of yourself." "I am," she agreed, her fingers tracing the muscles of his chest. But I prefer having you watch my back, among other things." The playful atmosphere shifted into something more heated as their lips met. Lilith's tentacles slid beneath his shirt, making him groan against her mouth. "We should be planning our next move," he murmured, even as his hands wandered over her curves. "We are," she whispered back. "I'm just ensuring you're properly motivated to keep me safe." Hours later, they finally returned to their strategic discussion, though Lilith remained comfortably nestled in Terran's arms, her tentacles lazily caressing his skin. "The most contaminated sites will be the least guarded," she explained, pulling up a map. "They rely on the toxicity itself as security, which means they might have gotten sloppy about other security measures," Terran mused, his tactical mind engaging despite the pleasant distraction of Lilith's touch. "But we'll need to modify my suit's filtration system to handle the exposure." "Already working on it," Lilith said proudly, several tentacles gesturing to where she'd been tinkering with his equipment. "Though I must admit I prefer you without the suit." "Minx," he chuckled, capturing one of her wandering tentacles and pressing a kiss to its tip. "Focus." Their planning session was interrupted by an alert from Lilith's monitoring systems. She quickly accessed the feed, her expression growing serious. "They're moving equipment into the deeper mines," she reported. "Heavy drilling machinery. They're accelerating their operation." "They must be worried about the evidence we stole," Terran said, "trying to extract as much as they can before we can expose them, which means more toxic waste being dumped into the water table." Lilith's tentacles writhed with agitation. "We need to move fast." They spent the next few hours preparing, Lilith modifying Terran's suit while he checked their weapons and gear. Their movements around each other were intimate and practiced, speaking to their growing comfort and trust. "You know," Lilith said as she made final adjustments to his filtration system, "I never expected this when I first sensed you entering my territory." "What, falling for the human sent to kill you?" Terran teased, catching her hand and pulling her close. "Finding someone who understands me so completely," she corrected, her silver eyes soft with emotion. "Someone who fights for what's right, no matter the cost. Someone who thinks your tentacles are incredibly sexy," he added with a roguish grin. She laughed, those same tentacles wrapping around him playfully. "That too, though I'm beginning to suspect you humans are the truly remarkable ones. Your adaptability, your courage, your capacity for love despite differences." Speaking of differences, Terran said, suddenly serious, there's something we should discuss before we go deeper into these toxic zones. What is it? The possibility of genetic compatibility. We haven't exactly been careful, and with all these chemicals around, Lilith's tentacles stilled for a moment before resuming their gentle caress. Are you asking if we could conceive? The thought had crossed my mind, he admitted. Not that I'm opposed to the idea, just worried about the timing. She finished for him, a warm smile playing across her lips. My people are remarkably adaptable, Terran. If it happens, any child of ours would be strong, like their father. The tenderness in her voice made his heart swell. He pulled her into a deep kiss, pouring all his emotions into it. When they finally parted, both were breathing heavily. We should finish preparing, Lilith said reluctantly, though her tentacles continued to hold him close. We should, Terran agreed, making no move to release her. Though I'm thinking we might need one more thorough equipment check. Her silver eyes sparkled with mischief and desire. Just to be safe. Exactly, he murmured, already pulling her toward their sleeping area. Can't be too careful in our line of work. Deep in the contaminated mining tunnels, Lilith suddenly swayed, her tentacles trembling slightly. Terran caught her instantly, concern etched on his face. You okay? I thought these toxins couldn't affect you. They can't, she said, pressing a hand to her abdomen. This is different. Her silver eyes widened with realization, tentacles curling protectively around her midsection. Oh! Terran's heart skipped a beat. Lilith? Remember our discussion about genetic compatibility? A smile played across her violet lips. It seems humans and cephalians are more compatible than anyone might have guessed. The implications hit him like a plasma blast. You're pregnant, she confirmed, her tentacles reaching out to caress his face. With your child. Instead of panic, Terran felt an overwhelming surge of joy and protectiveness. He pulled her close, mindful of her midsection. I guess this explains why you've been even more irresistible than usual lately. Hormonal changes, she explained, nuzzling his neck. My pheromones increased during early pregnancy, though I must say your response to them has been impressively enthusiastic. Minx? He growled playfully, then grew serious. We should abort the mission. Get you somewhere safe. Her tentacles tightened around him. This makes our mission more crucial than ever. I won't bring our child into a world where corporations can poison entire planets with impunity. Our child, Terran repeated softly, marveling at the words. A human-cephalian hybrid. That's going to raise some eyebrows. Are you worried? Lilith asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. He answered by kissing her deeply, his hands splaying protectively over her abdomen. The only thing I'm worried about is keeping you both safe while we finish this mission. Both? She purred, her tentacles sliding under his armor's seals. I love how that sounds coming from you. Lilith, out, he groaned. We're in the middle of a contaminated tunnel. Which I'm immune to, she reminded him, silver eyes gleaming with mischief. And your suit's working perfectly. Besides, pregnancy hormones make me rather demanding. Before he could respond, their sensors picked up approaching security patrols. They quickly moved deeper into the tunnel system, finding shelter in an abandoned processing chamber. Your timing is terrible, Terran whispered, though he couldn't help grinning. My timing is perfect, she countered, using her tentacles to access nearby computer terminals, while maintaining their intimate proximity. I'm excellent at multitasking, remember? As she worked, Terran kept watch, his tactical mind racing. A baby changed everything, and nothing. Their mission was more important than ever, but now they needed an exit strategy that ensured long-term safety. Found something, Lilith announced, her tentacles dancing across multiple screens. They're not just dumping toxic waste. They're specifically targeting certain mineral formations that… Oh, what is it? The minerals they're destroying, they're vital to my species' reproductive cycle. They emit specific frequencies that help stabilize our genetic structure during pregnancy. Her hands went to her abdomen again. That's why I was drawn to these caves initially. I must have instinctively sensed their properties. Terran's jaw tightened. They're not just destroying the environment. They're making it impossible for your people to safely reproduce here. Which explains why they were so eager to drive me away, Lilith said, her tentacles writhing with anger. Or have me eliminated. A pregnant cephalian would have eventually discovered their true agenda. Good thing they sent me instead of another hunter, Taryn said, pulling her close again. Very good thing, she agreed, her mood shifting from anger to arousal with pregnancy-induced swiftness. Though I'm not sure hunter is the right word anymore. You're more like my mate now. Mate? He tested the word, finding he liked how it felt. That's a very alien way of putting it. Would you prefer baby daddy? She teased, making him laugh. Definitely not. Mate works fine. He kissed her temple, then her lips. Though we should probably focus on the mission before your hormones drive us both crazy. Too late for that, she murmured against his mouth. But you're right. The sooner we finish this, the sooner we can focus on more pleasant activities. They spent the next hour gathering evidence, working in perfect sync, despite the constant undercurrent of attraction between them. Lilith's pregnancy seemed to have enhanced her abilities, her tentacles moving with even greater precision and sensitivity. The baby's making me more aware of my surroundings, she explained when he commented on it. It's a natural defense mechanism. Though I must say, having such a strong, handsome human mate nearby makes me feel even safer. Flatterer, he accused fondly, simply stating facts. You humans are remarkably adaptable. Most species would be freaking out about interspecies pregnancy, but you're taking it completely in stride. That's because you're amazing, he said simply, and any child of yours will be too. Her tentacles wrapped around him lovingly. Ours, any child of ours. The mining corporation's response was swift and brutal. Within hours of detecting Lilith's unique biological signature in their security systems, elite hunter teams were deployed across the planet. But they weren't the only ones racing against time. Taryn, Lilith called urgently from their cave sanctuary, her tentacles wrapped protectively around her noticeably swollen abdomen. Something's happening. He rushed to her side, amazed by how much she changed in just days. The mineral-rich environment was accelerating her pregnancy at an unprecedented rate. Her violet skin now had an ethereal glow, and her silver eyes sparked with enhanced power. The baby, she gasped, grabbing his hand and placing it on her stomach. It's growing so fast, I can feel its consciousness already. A perfect blend of both our species. Taryn felt movement under his palm, strong and decisive. Just like its mother, he said softly, then tensed as his tactical sensors blared warnings. We've got company, multiple teams converging on our position. Let them come, Lilith said fiercely, her tentacles writhing with protective fury. They won't touch our child. The first attack came from above, as combat drones breached their outer defenses. Taryn's modified armor systems engaged automatically, while Lilith's tentacles whipped through the air with lethal precision, shorting out the machines with controlled electromagnetic pulses. Impressive, Taryn commented, taking down 2 more drones with perfectly placed shots. New ability? Pregnancy enhancement, she explained, managing to sound both proud and seductive, even in the middle of combat. My body's adapting to protect our offspring, though I must say, watching you fight still makes me rather heated. Seriously? He laughed, ducking under a drone's attack while laying down covering fire. Now? Can't help it, she purred, her tentacles crushing another drone. Pregnancy hormones, remember? Besides, you're incredibly attractive when you're being protective. Their playful banter was interrupted by a more serious threat, heavily armed hunter teams breaching their inner defenses. Taryn recognized their tactics immediately. These aren't regular corporate security, he warned. They're special forces like I used to be. Good, Lilith said, her silver eyes glowing brighter. Then they'll understand exactly what they're up against. A human warrior protecting his mate and child. The battle that followed was intense, but beautiful in its coordination. Taryn and Lilith moved as one, her tentacles complementing his combat maneuvers perfectly. When enemies got too close, she would disable their weapons while he delivered precise takedowns. When they needed cover, her tentacles would create protective barriers, while his marksmanship kept attackers at bay. Between waves of attackers, Lilith suddenly doubled over, her tentacles trembling. Taryn, the baby. It's responding to the combat, growing even faster. He pulled her into a defensible position, concern warring with tactical necessity. We need to get you out of here. "No," she said firmly, even as her body underwent visible changes. "The mineral formations in these caves are vital for the baby's development. Moving me now could be dangerous. Then we hold this position," he decided, setting up additional defenses while keeping one hand protectively on her swollen abdomen. "No one gets near you or our child." She caught his face between her hands, pulling him in for a passionate kiss. "My fierce human warrior. How did I get so lucky?" "Pretty sure I'm the lucky one," he murmured against her lips. "The most beautiful monster in the galaxy, carrying my child." Their moment was interrupted by a new alarm, this one from Lilith's research equipment. "Terran," she said urgently, "they're bringing in heavy mining equipment. They're going to try to collapse the cave system." "Like hell they are," he growled, checking his weapons. "How long until the baby's developed enough to move safely?" Her tentacles danced across diagnostic screens. "Hours, maybe less with this acceleration. But we need to protect the mineral formations until then. Without them..." She didn't need to finish. Their child's unique hybrid nature made these minerals essential for proper development. Losing them now could be catastrophic. "Then we protect them," Terran said simply, his tactical mind already formulating plans. "I've got some explosives we can use to redirect their drilling, create some cave-ins of our own, control where they can and can't go." "Always so resourceful," Lilith purred, her tentacles caressing him appreciatively, even as she monitored their defenses. "It's terribly attractive. You think everything I do is attractive right now," he teased, trying to keep her spirits up while they prepared for the next assault. "True," she admitted shamelessly, "though watching you plan battle strategies while protecting our unborn child is particularly appealing. Makes me want to show you just how much I appreciate it." "Later," he promised, kissing her quickly before moving to set his charges. "After we've dealt with these bastards and ensured our baby's safety." "I'll hold you to that," she called after him, her tentacles already preparing additional defenses. "And Terran?" "I love you," he paused, looking back at her. "This incredible being who changed his life so completely. I love you too. Both of you." The mining corporation's heavy drilling equipment sent tremors through the cave system, causing a massive collapse that opened up a previously sealed chamber. As dust filled the air, Lilith's tentacles suddenly began glowing with an intense silver light, resonating with something ancient and powerful. "Terran," she gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is, it's a sacred birthing chamber of my people. The minerals here, they're pure, untouched." The chamber was breathtaking. Crystalline formations, pulsed with bioluminescent energy, creating patterns that seemed to respond to Lilith's presence. Her already accelerated pregnancy appeared to intensify in response, her body gaining an ethereal glow. "The baby," she whispered, her tentacles weaving patterns of light in the air. "I can feel its power joining with mine. Our hybrid DNA is creating something unprecedented." Terran watched in awe as Lilith began to float slightly off the ground, her tentacles extending with newfound strength and precision. The attacking forces chose that moment to breach their position, but they weren't prepared for what they encountered. With a gesture, Lilith created a barrier of pure energy, her tentacles channeling power from the chamber's ancient crystals. "No one threatens our child," she declared, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. Remind me never to get on your bad side," Terran quipped, unable to hide his admiration. "Though I have to admit, watching you tap into ancient alien powers is incredibly attractive." She flashed him a seductive smile, even as her tentacles dispatched another wave of attackers. "Everything about you is incredibly attractive, my brave human, especially how you're taking all this in stride." Their banter was interrupted by unexpected movement at the cave entrance. But instead of more corporate forces, they saw familiar faces from the settlement. Alderman Thex led a group of miners and colonists, all armed and ready to fight. "We were wrong," the old alien announced, "about everything. The evidence you gathered, the truth about the corporation's activities. We cannot stand by while they destroy our world and persecute an innocent family." More settlers appeared behind him, including some of the very people who had originally hired Terran to eliminate Lilith. Now they came bearing weapons, medical supplies, and determined expressions. "Well," Terran said, sharing an amused look with Lilith, "this is an interesting plot twist." "Humans," she purred, her tentacles still maintaining the energy barrier, while others caressed his armor. always inspiring others to rise above their prejudices. The settlers quickly integrated into their defensive positions, following Terran's tactical guidance while marveling at Lilith's enhanced abilities. The birthing chamber's energy continued to flow through her, accelerating her pregnancy while granting her unprecedented control over her powers. During a brief lull in the fighting, Lilith pulled Terran into an alcove, her tentacles creating a private space for them. "The baby's almost ready," she whispered, guiding his hand to her now prominent belly. "Can you feel how strong it is? Your human adaptability combined with my species' natural abilities, creating something amazing," he finished, pulling her close. "Just like its mother." She kissed him deeply, her tentacles wrapping around them both. "And its father. You humans are truly remarkable creatures. Your courage, your ability to change hearts and minds." A massive explosion rocked the cave system, interrupting their moment. Terran's tactical display showed the corporation was making one final, desperate push. "They're bringing down the whole mountain," he realized grimly. "Let them try," Lilith said, her silver eyes blazing with power. Her tentacles began to glow brighter, drawing energy from the ancient chamber. "Our child will not be born in fear." The settlers rallied around them, forming a defensive ring, while Lilith channeled power through the crystalline formations. Terran coordinated their defense, his tactical genius complementing her raw power perfectly. "You know," he called out between exchanging fire with corporate forces, "when I took this contract, I didn't expect to end up defending my pregnant alien mate while she taps into ancient powers." "Disappointed?" she teased, her tentacles elegantly dispatching attackers while maintaining their protective barrier. "Are you kidding?" He grinned, taking down 3 enemies with precise shots. "This is the best job I've ever taken." The chamber's crystals pulsed in rhythm with Lilith's powers, creating a symphony of light and energy that seemed to strengthen everyone fighting alongside them. The settlers, inspired by their example, fought with unprecedented courage. "Your love story," Alderman Thex commented while reloading his weapon. "It's changing everything we thought we knew about humans and other species." "Love has a way of doing that," Lilith said softly, her tentacles briefly caressing Terran's face before returning to their defensive duties. In the midst of the corporation's final assault, the ancient birthing chamber erupted with blinding light. Lilith's labor had begun, perfectly timed with the chamber's peak energy resonance. Terran held her close as her tentacles wove patterns of pure power through the air. "Something's happening across the galaxy," she gasped, her silver eyes wide with wonder. "The chamber. It's awakening others like it. Ancient sites, dormant for millennia." Terran's tactical display confirmed it. Similar energy signatures were appearing on countless worlds. The corporation's attack must have triggered some kind of chain reaction. "No," Lilith smiled through her labor pains, her tentacles caressing his face. "Our baby did. The first human cephalian child. The chambers are responding to its unique energy signature." The corporate force's heavy weapons suddenly went silent, their equipment disrupted by the spreading wave of alien power. In that moment of relative quiet, their child chose to enter the universe. The birth itself was surprisingly quick, enhanced by the chamber's ancient energies. As their son took his first breath, the crystalline formations pulsed with unprecedented brightness. The baby boy had Terran's strong human features combined with Lilith's violet skin tone and small, elegant tentacles that already showed signs of the mother's control over energy. "He's perfect," Terran whispered, cradling their son while maintaining a defensive position. The hardened mercenary's eyes were suspiciously moist. "Of course he is," Lilith purred, her tentacles wrapping protectively around both father and son. "He's the best of both our species." Their moment of family bonding was interrupted by approaching footsteps. But instead of hostile forces, they saw corporate soldiers laying down their weapons, staring in awe at the child whose very existence defied their prejudices. "Stand down," the corporate commander ordered his remaining forces. "We've just received word. Similar chambers are activating everywhere. The whole galaxy is watching. We can't. This is bigger than our orders." Alderman Thex stepped forward, his multiple eyes wide with wonder. The ancient prophecies spoke of a union that would awaken the sleeping temples. We never imagined it would be a human, and one we foolishly called a monster. Speaking of monster, Taryn said, grinning at Lilith. "I believe I failed spectacularly at my original contract." I'd say you succeeded beyond anyone's wildest expectations," she replied, her tentacles playfully tugging at his armor. "Though I must admit, I'm rather glad you're terrible at following orders." Their son chose that moment to demonstrate his inherited powers, his tiny tentacles creating miniature light shows that danced through the chamber. The assembled crowd gasped in amazement. "He has your showmanship," Taryn chuckled. "And your timing," Lilith countered, pulling him down for a kiss that made the baby's light display brighten considerably. In the days that followed, their story spread across the galaxy. The awakened chambers proved to be more than just birthing sites. They were repositories of ancient knowledge about cooperation between species, about the potential for different races to create something greater together. The mining corporation, faced with overwhelming evidence and public opinion, not only ceased their illegal operations, but was forced to fund clean-up efforts on all affected worlds. More importantly, other human-alien couples began coming forward, inspired by Taryn and Lilith's example. 1 month later, they stood in their renovated cave system, now a recognized cultural heritage site. Their son, whom they named Alexander, played with his tentacles while floating slightly off the ground, a trick that simultaneously terrified and delighted his father. "You know," Tyrone said, watching Lilith use her tentacles to keep their precocious offspring from floating too high, "when I took that contract to eliminate a monster, I never imagined it would lead to all this." "All what?" Lilith teased, her free tentacles wrapping around him suggestively. "Saving the galaxy? Becoming a symbol of interspecies harmony? Or falling madly in love with your target?" "Yes," he replied simply, pulling her close. "Humans," she purred, her silver eyes sparkling with mischief and desire. "Always exceeding expectations, though I must say, you still owe me for that initial attempt on my life." "I've been making it up to you pretty thoroughly," he reminded her, his hands trailing over her curves. "True," she admitted, using her tentacles to create a privacy screen around them while Alexander remained safely contained in his play area. "Though I think I need more convincing." "As my lady commands," Taryn murmured against her lips, still amazed at how perfectly they fit together despite their differences. Above them, their son's laughter echoed through the chamber as he created ever more complex patterns of light, a living symbol of how love could bridge any gap, overcome any prejudice, and create something truly miraculous.